What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here. Today's Friday, so naturally this is Freestyle Friday. The whole gist of that is basically I'm going to have fun and show you guys something that I think is valuable and unique and such a cool way to build a fly. I've really wanted to show this for a while. And what it is using ostrich essentially as a dubbing brush, if you will, at least in my mind, right? That's kind of how I understand it. And so what you have here is an ostrich stem. Now typically, if you just look at this thing, it's stiff as all get out. And so you would actually come in, you'd pick however many fibers you want, cut them off, tie them in. But look at this, right? This is an ostrich quill that has been stripped off the really thick stem. And yet they're all connected, and yet they're supremely flexible, and they splay out in a 360-degree format. Let me wrap this around my finger because it's epic. Look at that. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? Now this one is from August West. Brandon, my homeboy, who just ties some of the sickest flies ever, and this is a technique he uses. I first learned it from Jason Taylor. Jason Taylor's like he's at the top, right? Like Jason, Nelson, Johnny King, you know, Popovic's, like it's like tier 1 up there. In 2019, I think, at the Fly Tying Symposium, he brought out this beast fly, and the tail was made like this. So what I'm going to show you how to do is essentially strip this off and then turn it around a hook to make a huge, fluffy 360-degree hollow fly out of ostrich. We're going to have some bucktail stages in there, finish it off with a bulkhead, hide it under some standard ties, counter shade it kind of with a different color, slap some jungle cock. It's just going to be cool. It's going to be freestyle. It's going to be very feathery, very Jason Taylor-esque. But this is how you strip ostrich. Kind of. I just make it up. This is how I strip ostrich. Could be wrong, but it's fine. What you're going to need while we are getting the fly started and set is a cooking tray. Cookie tray? Cookie tray. Take your ostrich, put it in there. It's out of frame. You're just going to have to trust me. Take a cup of water and soak it. Now you can soak this however way you want. You know, I'm pretty sure August, he stuffs it in bottles. Totally fine. Whatever you got to do. Just get the stem wet. It needs to be wet for probably 15 minutes. If you're going to strip it successfully. That's probably like a minimum. While that soaks and gets all saturated, we got a 6/0. It's a Partridge Universal Predator X, classic heavy steel that can really do anything: pike, muskie, saltwater, big game. Not blue water, but you know, it can do a lot. We got 6/1000 mono Danville. The sticker's off. You're just gonna have to trust me on that. And we're gonna put a bucktail foundation, base, flash, hackles, and then hopefully by the time that's done, we're gonna start stripping. So I'm gonna start my thread. Make the prettiest thread base that you have ever seen. Okay, it's just like okay, but it's, you know, it is what it is. The bucktail, it's just kind of like standard white. No, it's fluffy white. It's super fluffy, really springy. It's a beautiful tail, but it's not super long. It's like 4-inch hair. Gonna come kind of in the sweet spot section where I'm gonna get some pretty good characteristics to set a base and put some hackles off of it. And because we're setting some hackles on it, and because I'm gonna kind of do bucktail stages to help support and fluff up the ostrich, I'm gonna go a little thicker than I normally would. Normally, if it was like a hollow fly or something like that, these would be very sparse and gradual and aesthetic, but this is gonna be like a clump of bucktail, and then 2 bulkhead ties or something like that, right? It's off the cuff, but in my head it's kind of structured. But it's gonna be a little bit thicker than normal. Take that fluff out. I'm gonna clean this up. You see how it's messy? I'm just gonna make it clean, but over here where you can't see. Gonna come in with a nice little controlled 3 wraps right on top of each other. Smash the nail right on top. Pack it around, draw out the slack, pull your thread to the elastic limit, maximum compression. It's a round thread, so it's just biting and biting and biting and digging into that hair. and then just wrap those butts down. I'm going to come forward and come back, and then I'm just going to clean this all up. Now, of course, this is kind of wrapped around my bend, because when I sucked the slack out, you had a little spin, right? So the hair tried to trace my thread as the tension was put on it. The tension pulled hair with it. It got wrapped around the bend, so you just kind of clean that up. No big deal. And we have a nice fluffy base to build everything off of, except for these three. Get out of there. Cool. Let's do flash first and hide it. It's micro flash, 1/100, super limp. Like, love this stuff. Like, if you were doing a flash tail whistler, this stuff would be sick. And because it's going to be for pike and muskie, I don't care. I'm going to make it super flashy. You can do what you want. You can do it less flashy. I'm going to do it super flashy. And I'm going to select some hackles, hopefully that are long enough to marry with this. But I'm going to introduce some taper, and I'm going to tie it in at the midpoint, and essentially we're going to put a stack on top and a stack on the bottom. So I'm just going to wrap my thread on it, pin it to the top. Oh, good grief. That didn't look clean, did it, folks? It's Freestyle Friday, give me a break. But I got half of it on top, and we'll just take this kind of half and suck it underneath so that they should be fairly even as far as, you know, how the distribution of the density of material. Kind of flare it out so it's symmetrical, and then put their nice thread base over top. So now we got a big old flash tail, which is going to be sick, with super limp flash boot, like crazy limp flash boot. And we're just going to tent some feathers on this guy. So this is a super cheap $10. That's legit, super cheap $10 thing. Actually, Jason Taylor helped me pick this one out. I picked this one out at the fly show. And what you can see is it's a saddle, meaning, you know, it's like the back end of the bird. It's not up at the cape, but it's the back, right where it connects to the cocktail. So we have some nice sloppy stuff. These aren't thick enough stemmed, kind of. Well, those are kind of sick. Look at those. Those are kind of sick. That wasn't the plan, folks. This was not the plan, but look at these hackles. So a lot of times when you get cheap feathers, essentially the reason why they're cheap is because they're not uniform, meaning they're not consistent enough for any specific application, which kind of makes them undesirable, right? Like if you can't market to doing perfect deceiver tails, and if you can't market it to doing, you know, like classic dry fly stuff, they're kind of like, well, who's gonna buy this? Weird guys like me, because I love natural variation. But look at these. Webby, long, perfect length, beautiful taper to them. They're gonna be a little heavy-handed, but these are gonna be sweet for a pike and muskie fly. This is the kind of schlopping I would very much enjoy tying with. So I'm gonna get all my tips kind of the same length. We're gonna measure them out a little bit longer than the flash boot. What's really nice, and this is probably why I got so excited, the length relative to the stem placement. So right here at the stem, if you can see how this is super marabou quality hair. Let me cut this real quick. When you get up into that marabou quality hair, the stem becomes ovalized in the same orientation that the hackles are splayed. You know, up and down, well, it's an oval in this way, which makes it super easy to pair to the hook. I can control these feathers without getting any twist in them whatsoever, so I can stack essentially, you know, side, top, and make a little tent, and it's just gonna do what I want, which is sick. So I found like the perfect length feather with really nice webbiness to make a really nice tail to go with all that flash. Sweet. Sometimes when you're tying off the cuff, you just gotta let the stuff speak to you. So I'm gonna put this guy essentially just flat on the side. Oh, look at that, no rolling whatsoever. Beautiful hackle. That's what I'm talking about. So the stems are kind of essentially flat, if you want to call them like that, so that when I put it on the side, well, it just kind of stays on the side. It stays right where I put it. That one rolled up just a tad, so I'm just gonna roll it down a tad. And then I'm going to tent these ones down over the back, meaning that they're kind of angled in a tent fashion, right down the spine. little more roll to it. Alright, so we're going to try to strip this. I think it's been long enough. It might be a little tight. We'll see. I don't really care. If I fail, I fail. But Brandon, he gave me this hackle, so actually I don't want to mess it up. It's like one of the nicest ostrich hackles that I have. So let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to get this guy out of the water. I'm just going to run it through my paper towel real quick just because it is soaking wet. I'm going to come all the way up to the tip top, come down a little because that's soft enough you could actually turn that and use that on a fly. You're going to grab some of the barbules, I don't know what these are called, barbules I suspect, and you're just going to try to peel it off slow enough that the membrane that they're all attached to comes with it. You can see how I'm starting to get the membrane off. Now once you get it started, don't screw this up because it needs to be a nice long continuation so that you can actually turn it as many times as you need to. I'm sure if you watched like JT do it, he could strip this thing in like 2 seconds, but I don't want to mess it up. And if you look at how stiff this is, like this is the only way, man. This is the way. All right, down here at the bottom. So sick. I just made an ostrich dubbing brush. You see this? It's an ostrich dubbing brush. It's so sick. I'm gonna do the other side since it's wet. Might as well do them both. I lost some. It's okay. So this is what is left of our ostrich. And this is what we have. Now you can use it and tie it in while it's wet. No reason why you can't do that. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to counter rib this. I'm not going to counter rib it. What I'm going to do is take some Gorilla Glue clear, which has a nice long working time and even bonds slightly better if it's against something that's wet. And I'm going to put just a layer of Gorilla Glue down and then wrap this through it with touching turns and build up an Ostrich Hollow. It's going to be sweet. If I don't spill all of this water over my dyeing desk. So I'm going to take this by the tip section here. I'm going to tie it in. Come to the midpoint of that hook. Kind of just shy of the midpoint of that hook, I suppose. That might have been just a tad sloppy, so I'll take away some of the extra. Now what's really kind of fun is as the fly dries, this will get fluffier and fluffier and fluffier because right now they're all soaking wet. And so it kind of doesn't give it the same effect. It becomes quite comical when it dries out. So this is how JT built the tail of a beast. I don't think they were touching turns, they were probably open spiral, and it was counter ribbed over a little bit of kind of like flash dubbing with angel hair in it. It was the sickest ostrich beast hybrid thing you've ever seen. Like, it was so gnarly. Just movement for days, dude. It was unreal. But you can see the beautiful kind of volume that these hackles want to achieve. And so you are legit, because typically when you tie it in, right, you're gonna kind of whoop, and then you won't get any volume out of them unless there's a support system. So without bucktail or something else to hold it up, there is nothing that's going to actually make the ostrich truly have a hollow shape to it. It always needs to be supported underneath. But in this sense, we're getting ostrich that's sticking up out of the hook shank 90 degrees. It's so sick. So just movement for days, dude. I don't know how else to say it. It's definitely one of those flies that I'm gonna hand over hand, keep it pulsating, pull it up into the current. You might get some interesting breath, but look how long these are. They perfectly land. Like, it's the taper on this thing is just gonna be gnarly. I'm so happy I found those hackles. You gotta go in the moment sometimes. That was a happy accident. All right, so for this mid-body section, I'm gonna put this off to the side while it dries. For this mid-body section, I'm gonna do a bulkhead tie just to get some buoyancy up at the hook eye so it doesn't drop too much. Also just get some good fat bulk and lift to it. So I'm gonna come kind of in this lower section down here where it's meatier. You can just, this tail has so much air in it, it's ridiculous. So this is gonna behave very much like deer belly hair. And again, because I'm not building up sparse layers, I'm gonna use kind of a jump, you know, a little bit more than I normally would. But I'm gonna do, I guess I'm doing a reverse bulkhead. I should know what I'm doing before I do it, but I don't. I'm doing a reverse bulkhead, so there's gonna be a hollow tie in here, but I'm gonna leave the bucktail butts in for the buoyancy, but also for some under bulk to it. Distribute that, suck out the slack, take, you know, 2 or 3 extra turns. I'm gonna keep that under tension as I manipulate this backwards, so that that bobbin and those locking wraps that are sucking that down, maximum compression, can't back off. Get that through just like deer belly hair without bringing anything with you. Wrapped up to the hook eye and back to lock those wraps in place, and now we're just going to do a hollow tie. Now you're going to have to trust the flare a little bit right there. It's got some static to it right now. It's super dry in my house, so forgive me for that. But I had that set back a pretty good way. That'll collapse down. It just looks goofy. I'll show you the wet version when we're done, and you'll realize that I'm not being too crazy. But I'm going to come in again with micro flash. I'm going to blend a little pearl in there just to have some fun with the colors here. And we're going to wing essentially the same technique off this bucktail before we go back to the ostrich. I'm going to take my 2 micro flash colors and just spin them in my fingers, taper the tips. Pin it to the top, lash it down, suck it underneath, lash it down, distribute it on the top, distribute it on the bottom. Usually I just shove my thumbnail into it because I want it to spread out under that pressure, just so it's uniform in its application. And now with that flash on there, I can kind of collapse that a little bit more, tame that down. It'll just help with your thread damming and get it slicked back more. If you were struggling with that hollow tie, you can tie in a secondary material and put a cone on top of your cone that'll much easier to control Alright, little zap, not too much zap, little zap. Tying our next wave of ostrich. Is this the same hackle I was using? Yeah, it is. Now I'm going to stop right about there. I need enough room. I'm going to do another reverse bulkhead, but then I'm going to compress that with two kind of flat ties on top, which is very Jason. This whole thing is like Jason Taylor-esque, but like a musky version. There's really nothing musky version about it other than I'm going to fish it for musky, but make sure that stem rotates flat and then just walk this forward. I suppose I should use the rotary function. You don't have to, you can just hand over hand, but just walk that forward. But how sick is this? I love it. It's like, I think it's like the coolest thing. The stems are really stiff, quite durable. When you put them over glue like that, I'm not worried about anything happening durability wise. And you get so much volume and life out of it. Now you got to be a little choosy about finding hackles that'll suit you, because ostrich just has a ton of variation to it. So you just got to be careful about which ones you get. Alright, one more reverse bulkhead for some serious volume. Oh, sick. It's sick. So sick. Now I'm going to go a little sparse because we're going to do another stack right after this. So a little bit sparser than that one in the middle, because we're going to double it up. Going to do another reverse here. So something I just want to articulate is you saw me put a wrapper or two around that and then compress it. And I compressed it, you see the flare, before I moved it around. That compression put a crease in all of this hair. So it's got a slight V to it, so that as I distribute it, the butts and the tips aren't shifting forward and back because they're crimped, they're creased at this one spot. So as I move this around, it's going to move around the crease in the hair so that the butts and the tip positions don't change. Just something useful if you're struggling with that. Suck the slack out, a few turns. It's under tension as I manipulate it. Hold it back, bring the thread through, don't bring anything with you. Make a thread base. Build up this cone. As that cone gets closer to that hair, because it's so spongy, you gotta be really careful that you don't re-flare it and recompress it. So you can see I'm tying pretty light up against the hair. But that's good enough. Doesn't need to be better than that because I'm going to put bucktail on top of it. And that's going to compress it down and make the sickest bait fish ever. So we're going to counter shade the top. A little bit of yellow. It's really long. I'm going to use the back long to create stability in the fly and to work with the keel weight to that hook. I don't want it to flare much, so it'll be up towards the tip section a little bit. And this is a premium hair. This is like a double A grade. This one's one of Muskie Fool's. But I'm going to stack this as clean as I can right on top, going all the way down the back. Kind of like a stabilizer wing. So I'm going to tie it in. Kind of shift it around, but I'm really trying to keep it right on top. Then we're just going to clean up some of those butts with thread. And you can see that compressed that front hollow. That's why I wasn't super worried about getting that front hollow perfect. It's just going to tent right everything up in there. And then I will take a little bit of this dead tip hair, and I'm going to do the exact same thing in white on the bottom. I'm going to get a shorter tail. So I went and got a shorter tail so that I could still use the bucktail at full length. The density on this is quite a bit less. I wanted that top wing not only to be longer, but to be denser, thicker. Shift that around a little, bring it to the sides a little, walk it back a little, clean up these butts. Not too much because it doesn't matter much. Sick. Now, to finish it, because we went like super cool with the hackles and the ostrich and the stripped ostrich goodness, I'm gonna put jungle cock on it. Now, I've never had jungle cock before. I've never been able to afford the stuff. I really didn't know what to look for. I didn't know how to get it. And Brandon sent these to me because they were like a B grade or something. They have some split stems. I don't even know. Like I've literally have no experience with it. So you should stop watching right now and just like skip 20 seconds ahead. But what I'm gonna do is tie in some jungle cock for eyes, just because the whole fly is made out of feathers, and that's cool. It just keeps it on theme. It's like a thematic, is that the right word? I don't even know. Gonna get two that are about the same length. Oh, it just looks saltwater. Doesn't that just look salty? I'm gonna set my length. I am going to take some Dave's Flex Cement. This is the first time I've ever done this. Usually I use Gorilla Glue because this is what I had. And I'd put a layer of Gorilla Glue in the back with my finger, tie it in, put a layer of Gorilla Glue on top, and just let it cure. It has worked a dream. It works perfectly. But all the cool guys like Nelson and Brandon are like, use Dave's Flex Cement. So I don't know how to do this. I don't know what's gonna happen. But I'm gonna put a layer, I think. Don't. That was a bad idea. Don't do that. Use in a well-ventilated area, folks. I'm gonna put a layer just on that hair. That is a Freestyle Friday stripped ostrich turned musky deceiver on a 6-aught, I guess. I don't know, but that's sick. That was fun to tie. Thanks for watching, guys. I don't know why I'm saying goodbye. I gotta get this wet, but I'll say goodbye anyway, and then just stick around 30 more seconds and see what the finished product looked like. That was just fun, just having fun. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This is the kind of stuff that I get excited about, and I haven't been excited behind the vise in a while, so thanks for watching, and hopefully there was a few things, whether with bucktail or setting feathers or how not to use jungle cock and Dave's Flex Cement. But I'll catch you in the next one, and who knows what it'll be, but fishing season's finally upon us, and yeah, we'll use this. We'll catch something on this. It'll be sweet. See you guys.